receive the Vice Chancellor's procession. The Vice Chancellor's procession is being led into the auditorium this afternoon by the Deputy Registrar in charge of Senate Matters, Mrs. Comfort Ehigiato. The procession includes the Provost, College of Postgraduate Studies, Provost, College of Medical Sciences, the Dean of Students, Deans of Faculties, Directors of Academic Programs and Institutes. The inaugural lecturer, principal officers of our great university, and the Vice Chancellor. We're receiving the Vice Chancellor's procession. National anthem, and thereafter we'll take the Uniben anthem. Vice Chancellor, the esteemed Professor Edoba Omoigi, SAN, represented at today's inaugural lecture by the Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic, Professor Chief Victor Osamede, Principal Officers of our great university, Provosts, Deans, Directors, Professors Emerita, other professors and scholars here present, government functionaries, Your Royal Highnesses, staff and students, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure this afternoon to welcome you to today's inaugural lecture. It is the 355th in the inaugural lecture series of the University of Benin. Please put your hands together to celebrate that. Today's inaugural lecture will be delivered by a one-time HOD in the Faculty of Education, a former chairman of the university's admission board, a people's man, a clergyman, and an experienced professor of measurement and evaluation. Also, he is presently the Dean of the Faculty of Education of the Great University of Benin. He is no other than your Dean, my Dean, our Dean, Professor Kingsley Osamede Omorogiuwa. He will be looking at the topic, Test Psychometrics, Measuring the Invisible from the Visible. Is examination a true test of knowledge? May I now invite the Registrar of our University and Secretary to Council, Mr. Ademola Bebola, FCIPM, MNIM, to introduce the Vice Chancellor and everyone on the Vice Chancellor's entourage.
Mr. Vice Chancellor, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I want to plead that I be allowed to continue with the protocol as duly established by the university's PRO, represented by Mrs. Tracy. All courtesies duly extended, and I join her to also formally welcome every one of us to this epoch-making occasion, when one of our own dear Dean and scholar is presenting an inaugural lecture. Obviously one of the best faculties in this university, Faculty of Education. A faculty that could produce 2 vice chancellors and some acting vice chancellors is a very distinguished faculty. It is my singular honor to present to us their Vice Chancellor. You have heard his name, but for the sake of protocol, I want to inform you that the current Vice Chancellor is the 11th substantive Vice Chancellor of this university since its establishment in 1970. I think we should give him a round of applause for that. He's a distinguished scholar, someone who has gotten to the peak within the academia and even in his chosen field of law practice. He's a senior advocate of Nigeria, Professor Edoba B. Omoige, senior advocate of Nigeria. Please, let's give him a round of applause. Let's celebrate our Vice Chancellor. Well, the Vice Chancellor is following us because shortly before we came in, I was checking the link, and we were also saying that the rain should not disturb this event. Rather, the rain should be a source of blessing to us. I want to believe it's a source of blessing to all of us. So the Vice Chancellor is physically represented here today by a man of scholarship and tradition. He is a very big chief in the palace of the ancient kingdom of Benin, Professor Victor Igbeneweka, the Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic. He is standing in very well for the Vice Chancellor today, physically. We have also with us a very distinguished biochemist and a professor of several years and a very experienced administrator as well. Professor C.C. Osubo is the Deputy Vice Chancellor Administration. We have with us the keeper of our money, that's the treasury. The man who, if he's not putting his biro or his imprimatur there, there won't be any money to spend in the system. A very distinguished accountant, fellow of many accounting bodies, Mr. O.I. Osifo, the boss of this university. We have with us a very distinguished scholar too on this other side of the divide. A man who has studied in different universities, has also traversed different areas in university administration, formerly Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic, but currently the Provost College of Postgraduate Studies, Professor David Izeko. We have the Provost College of Medical Sciences, ably represented here today by no less a distinguished personality and scholar, the Deputy Provost of that college, Professor Mrs. V. Omwemu. It's not easy to be a distinguished professor of medicine. Please, let's give her a round of applause. Let's celebrate her. We have the #1 student on campus, a distinguished professor of microbiology, Professor Freddie Ekaise, the Dean of Student Affairs. Well, the next dean I'm to introduce is occupying that seat only for this particular moment, because the man who has that seat is the one delivering the inaugural lecture today. And he has found somebody so worthy to come in. He's the director of sports in this university, and he's also a distinguished professor of kinetics and sports and all sports science. Professor Elvis Agbonlaho is also here. And we have possibly the tallest in the park of the Vice Chancellor Center right, the Dean Faculty of Agriculture, Professor C.O. Emokaro. We have a former acting Vice Chancellor of a sister university, the Dean Faculty of Arts, Professor O.B. Osadolo. The Dean School of Basic Clinical Sciences, Professor V.J. Ekanem. We have another Osadolo this time around, sharing name with the pencil we used in the primary school in those days, HB. Professor H.B. Osadolo, the Dean School of Basic Medical Sciences. Of course, we have the potent Dean Faculty of Communication represented here today by distinguished Professor F.E. Olize. The acting Dean, School of Dentistry, Professor Mrs. J.E. Enabulele is in the Vice Chancellor Central right. And we have the Dean Faculty of Engineering, Professor O.O. Ogwede is represented. Because the Dean himself is Kingsley Ogwede, but the one represented today is also another Ogwede. Please, let's give them a round of applause. Maybe engineering will be the land of the Ogwedes eventually. The Dean Faculty of Environmental Sciences, Professor Raphael Egiato Irugbe is also here. The Dean Faculty of Law, Professor Bright Bazwaye. The Dean Faculty of Life Sciences, Professor T.O.T. Imobe. The Dean School of Medicine is ably represented here today by Professor A.I. Obi. The Dean Faculty of Management Sciences, Professor Mrs. E.I. Evairo Osage is also here. And we have the potent Dean Faculty of Nursing Science, Professor F.U. Okafo. Don't expect a woman, is a man. I've told you the Dean of Nursing Science is a man. I hope it's not going to be a surprise to you that he's a man. so a man can be a nurse. Let's give him a round of applause for going to the world of women. And we also have with us the Protent Dean Faculty of Optometry, represented here today by Dr. K.N. Bazwaye. The Dean's Faculty of Pharmacy, a very distinguished friend of the registrar, Professor Igodao Igwe, is also here. And we have the Dean whose name I will always call with caution so that everybody will not be laughing at me. The Dean Faculty of Physical Sciences, Professor E.O. Ayomi. Don't worry, I'll still go to some of my mentors there to teach me more. The Protent Dean Faculty of Science, Laboratory Technology, Professor J.O. Osamede is here in the Vice Chancellor's Center. Please let's give him a round of applause. And the Dean of the only faculty, he says it's the only faculty or campus, but I know education will always challenge that. I recently celebrated the 50th anniversary of that faculty. Professor Omorogiuwa, the Dean Faculty of Social Sciences. The Dean Faculty of Vocational and Technical Education is represented here today by Dr. Mrs. C.O. Nwajiani. And we have also the Director Center for Gender Studies, Professor Mrs. Lucy Okukwan. The Director Center for Gender Studies, Professor Mrs. I beg your pardon, Center for Part-Time Programs of this university, a distinguished scholar, Professor Kingsley Omorogiuwa. Okay. Well, we saw your face and we recorded it that you are here. It's okay, sir. We have also with us the Director Center for Distance Learning Program, Professor Mrs. Lucy Eraikweme. And we have the Director Center for Entrepreneurship Development, Professor B.O. Edegbai. Please, let's give them a round of applause. We need to clap for them because they are supporting the inaugural lecturer whom you are also supporting. The Director Intellectual Property and Technology Transfer Office, Professor Solomon Omorogiuwa, is here. The Director Tefo Center of Excellence for Aquaculture and Food Technology, Professor Mrs. Isioma Obo. The Director Center for Sustainable Development Goals, Professor Mrs. F.I. Okungbawa. And the Director, University Advancement and Alumni Relations, a former University Orator of this university, Professor Eji Eragwe. The Director, Advanced Digital Engineering Center, ADEC, Professor R.S. Eboziaye. The Director, Students Guidance and Counseling Center of this university, Professor Mrs. O.N. Ahie. She is one of us in education. Let's give her a round of applause. We know our own. The Director of Gender Studies of this university, Professor N. Ohamba. She's there. I hope the camera will be able to pick him there. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet believe. We have the Director, African Center for Mushroom Research and Technology Innovation, Professor E.O. Apaja. Let's give him a round of applause. Let's encourage him. The Director, Center for Research Laboratory is also here, Professor B. Ikajiagwe. Yes. The Director, Center for Continuing Legal Education, Professor Dennis Odige. And the Director, University of Benin Industrial Training Center, Professor S.D. Iyeke. Please, let's give him a round of applause. Acting Director, Institute of Public Administration, Health Services Management from Ekenwa Campus, Dr. John Osamede. The Director, Center for Maritime and ICT, Professor F.O. Woire is also here. Please let's give him a round of applause. And then the Director, Center for Educational Technology, Dr. Mrs. N.B. Agawa. And the Director of Consultancy Services Unit, University of Benin, Engineer Professor R.O. Edopia. And we also have the Director of Academic Planning represented here today by Dr. Mrs. O.M. Edeki. The Director of Herbal and Complementary Medicine, which is very unique to University of Benin for now, Professor Mrs. Josephine Ofeimu. And we have the Deputy Registrar in charge of Senate Matters, Mrs. C. Igiato, leading the Vice Chancellor Centralite. Please, let's give them all a round of applause. We know so many things about Professor Kingsley Omorogiuwa, and I'm sure many of the students just graduating recently passed through his office while he was chairman, university, admission, and so on. But I lack the ability to present him. It is the duty and responsibility of the Vice Chancellor to do that, which has been conferred on Professor Ibineweka. I therefore call on the acting Vice Chancellor to present the inaugural.
My esteemed regards to all the distinguished ladies and gentlemen here present. Good afternoon. I have the instruction of the Vice Chancellor, Professor Edoba Bright Omorogiuwa, to represent him in this occasion. The address he has given to me to introduce the lecturer, Professor Osamede Kingsley Omorogiuwa, on the occasion of the 355th the inaugural lecture series of the University of Benin, delivered on Thursday, 23rd October 2025, at the King Auditorium of the University of Benin, principal officers of the university. Provost, College of Postgraduate Studies, Provost, College of Medical Sciences, the deans of faculties and schools, directors of institutes and centers, members of council here present, professors emeriti and members of Senate here present, my lords spiritual and temporal, great staff and students of the University of Benin, distinguished invited guests and friends of the university, gentlemen of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you all to the 355th in the inaugural lecture series of the University of Benin. Today's lecture is the fourth to be delivered in the Department of Educational Evaluation and Counseling Psychology, 31st in the Faculty of Education, and 26th to be delivered in the 10th month of my tenure as the Vice Chancellor of the University of Benin. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce our lecturer for today. He is Professor Osamede Kingsley Omorogiuwa. The title of his lecture is Test Psychometrics, Measuring the Invisible from the Visible. Is examination a true test of knowledge? Professor Osamede Kingsley Omorogiuwa was born on the 20th January 1966 in Benin City to the family of Mr. Patrick Amasihu Godwin Omorogiuwa and Mrs. Victoria Efemeyiya Omorogiuwa, Uredu Local Government Area, Benin City, Edo State. He attended Benin Divisional Council Primary School and later Owegi Primary School, Benin City, where he obtained his first school leaving certificate in 1977. He attended his secondary education at Adolo College, now Edo Boys High School. Now Edo Boys High School, Benin City, where he obtained his West African School certificate in 1982. Professor Omorogiuwa then proceeded to the College of Education, Warri, where he obtained the National Certificate in Education, NC Mathematics and Physics in 1986. Thereafter, he gained admission to the University of Benin and graduated with a B.Ed Physics degree, second class upper division in 1990. Professor Omorogiuwa did his one-year mandatory National Youth Service in 1990-1991 at the Malari Day Secondary School, Maiduguri, Borno State. He thereafter obtained the following additional degrees from the University of Benin: Master of Education, Measurement and Evaluation in 1994, and a Doctor of Philosophy, PhD, in 2009. Professor Omorogiuwa has worked as lecturer 3 at the College of Education Ekiadolo in 1991 to 1994. He joined the services of the University of Benin as an assistant lecturer in 2001 in the Department of Educational Evaluation and Counseling Psychology, and rose through the ranks to the position of a professor in 2017. Professor Omorogiuwa has held some administrative positions within and outside the University of Benin, such as Returning Officer, National Election to Edo State House of Assembly 2011, Faculty Representative, Faculty of Physical Sciences Board of Studies 2011-2014, Congregation Representative, University of Benin, Senate 2011-2014, Head, Department of Educational Evaluation and Counseling Psychology 2016-2018. Professor Omorogiuwa is a member, University of Benin Teaching Hospital Research Ethics Committee 2016 to date. Is a member, Duke Royal Academy Board of Governors, Benin City 2017 to date. Head of Department of Statistics, University of Benin 2018 to 2021. Vice Chancellor Representative, A&PB, Faculty of Environmental Sciences 2018 to 2021. Local Government Coalition Officer, Federal National Elections 2019. was again returning officer at national election to Edo State House of Assembly in 2019. Chairman, University of Benin Admissions Board, UAB, 2020 to 2022. Chairman, Affiliation Supervisory Committee, 2020 to date. Member, Post-Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination Board, PUM, Direct Entry Committee, 2020 to 2022. Vice Chancellor Representative, Appointment and Promotion Board, Institute of Education, University of Benin, 2021 to date. The Dean of Education, 2022 to date. Vice Chancellor Representative, Faculty of Life Sciences, Deanship Election 2025. Professor Omorogiuwa belongs to the following professional bodies and associations. Member, Nigerian Association of Educational Researchers and Evaluators. Member, Curriculum Association of Nigeria. Member, American Association of Educational Measurement. He is a recipient of the Postdoctoral Fellowship Award from the University of South Africa, Pretoria in 2012. Professor Omorogiuwa has successfully supervised 38 PhD theses. 4 MPhil theses and over 120 master's degree projects, including several undergraduate students projects. He has over 50 publications, including 5 chapters in books, 5 flagship books in local, national, and international journals. He has published 3 mathematical textbooks for primary schools. Professor Omorogiuwa has attended several local, national, and international conferences. He is an external examiner assessor to 10 universities within and outside Nigeria. Professor Omorogiuwa has hobbies. The hobbies include book publishing, listening to gospel messages, he sings and he dances. He also plays lawn tennis. He plays lawn tennis and he likes to watch football. He is a Christian and a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ. He is happily married to Dr. Mrs. Tracy Omorogiuwa, an associate professor in the Department of Social Work, and the union is blessed with children. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to invite Professor Osamede Kingsley Omorogiuwa to deliver his inaugural lecture.
Thank you very much, distinguished Vice Chancellor. Please, you permit me to stand on already established protocol. Oh, special greetings to our dynamic, intelligent, and purpose-driven Vice Chancellor, Professor Edoba Omoige, SAN. Dedication. This inaugural lecture is dedicated to my parents, Mr. Patrick Amasio Godwin Omorogiuwa, and Mrs. Efenenia Omorogiuwa, for their love for education. Your sacrifice laid the foundation for this moment. To the wife of my youth, friend and sister, Dr. Mrs. Tracy B. Omorogiuwa, and our lovely children, Ogusa, Elogusa, Esosa, Obosa, and Odosa. You are wonderful blessings. My Vice Chancellor, sir, it is with great joy and a deep sense of fulfillment and heartfelt gratitude to the Almighty God that I stand before this distinguished audience today. Thankful for how far I have come in my academic journey. I give God the glory and express my deep gratitude to the University of Benin Authority, especially the indefatigable, hardworking, intelligent Vice Chancellor, Professor Edoba Bright Omoege, SCN, for creating the enabling environment for academic research and presentation of inaugural lectures to showcase research activities in the University of Benin. Inaugural lecture is a space for the fully promoted professors to present their accomplishments in research, creativity, engagement, and teaching to the university faculties, students, and the broader public. It offers the opportunity to acknowledge the work of your close colleagues and mentors. The lectures afford the space to bring the town and ground together in celebration of academic excellence. My Vice Chancellor, sir, this is the fourth inaugural lecture to be delivered in the Department of Educational Evaluation and Counseling Psychology since the creation of the department. The lecture is the first to be delivered in the department in the field of measurement and evaluation, Faculty of Education, University of Benin. The title of my inaugural lecture is Test Psychometrics, Measuring the Invisible from the Visible. Is examination a true test of knowledge? Don't answer yet. It is with great sense of humility I stand before this eminent audience. And indeed, I'm overwhelmed that the whole gallery is filled with people who want to find an answer to the question that I have asked. It's with great sense of humility that I stand before this eminent audience to deliver the 355th in the inaugural lecture series of the University of Benin. Let's go on. Learning is an essential part of living. But learning from one's own experiences alone is counterproductive. Hence, the need to learn from the experiences of others. Over time, those who have been able to learn from the experience of others have been able to lead more rewarding lives. You have heard people say experience is the best teacher. But I let you know that no. Experience is a good teacher, but it's not the best teacher. Like I have said before, in some gatherings, if you want to say that experience is the best teacher, maybe you should learn to fly a plane by experience. Of course, you may lift it from the ground, but that may be the last time you will fly. Man has come to know that structured learning involves planned, goal-oriented process with clearly defined objectives and implemented by learning experiences guided by a goal-oriented curriculum. Structured learning is more rewarding than unstructured learning. Unstructured learning is driven by the individual's curiosity and exploration without a defined framework of expected learning experiences. However, structured learning involves a planned and goal-oriented process with clearly defined objectives and implemented by learning experiences guided by curriculum. The idea of structured learning gave birth to the idea of schools. The earliest known schools were established in Sumer, ancient Mesopotamia, in 3500 BC, where scribes were trained in writing and administration. Schools are established so that structured learning can take place. There is, however, a challenge that came with structured learning, which is, how can we determine that learning has taken place? The most plausible solution to this challenge is testing, commonly referred to as examination. The use of tests as a means of assessment of learning can be traced to ancient China, 2200 BC, that's 2200 BC, when civil service examination system was instituted by the Chinese emperor to determine if government officials were fit to perform their duties. The system provided for officials to be examined every 3 years. These examinations were oral rather than written, with emphasis on answers given and also the manner in which the answers were given. During the 19th century, the British, French, and German governments patterned their civil service examination after the early Chinese system. China's imperial education system, which began during the Sui dynasty, 605 AD, involved written tests for selecting government officers. Henry Fisher, an American German and professor of languages, is however widely credited with formalizing written exams as a means of evaluating students in structured way during the late 19th century, introducing philosophy of tests, which emphasizes studying for tests and developing a system that included both interior and exterior assessment, which is understanding and application of what you have understood. This was anchored on his belief that examination is a dependable way to evaluate students' knowledge and understanding of a subject and to assess their ability to apply that knowledge. Tests can either be administered orally or in writing. Oral tests have been faulted as cumbersome and could be highly subjective as the testees are asked different questions, giving room for high error in scores awarded to testees. You have been experiences of that. There is an oral interview. The question that is asked one person is different from the other. So which means the scores obtained from such interviews are highly subjective. But however, psychometrists favor written tests as testees are asked the same questions. And in the very excellent application of this, they are required to answer all questions. So the idea of 3 questions to answer 4, 4 questions, 5 questions to answer 4, or 4 questions, or 6 questions to answer 5, it's not the best way of testing is an individual's knowledge. The best way is 5 questions to answer 5, 6 questions to answer 6. Thank you. And I say this from a place of knowledge and research. If I'm going to write an exam and I know that I will have to answer all questions, I will not leave out any part of the content I have to study. So which agrees with the philosophy of testing. That if I'm going to be tested in a content, I will prepare for all the contents. But by the time they say there are going to be 5 questions to answer 4, the likelihood that I will say the difficult parts, I will avoid them. And those difficult parts are the core areas of knowledge. And that is why we know that the students who perform excellently, they do not leave out any parts of their study. And we want every student to perform well and to reflect the true knowledge that they have. So I recommend, and by not just because I have to say so, but the evidence that we have from research says that it should be 5 questions to answer 5. Thank you. Now, some of us in this audience may be thinking already, asking, is examination a true test of knowledge? If that is you, what alternative do we have? I know that when it comes to exams, people are not usually the best of themselves. Some students go thin, some even fall sick because of exams. So because of that, some persons may say no need for exam. But I want to let you know that when you have a plausible alternative, let us know. But because there are no plausible alternative for now, then examinations have come to stay. But let's go on. Attempts to answer the question is hinged on the premise that whatever exists at all exists in some amount. So if you have knowledge, it exists in some amount in you. And anything that exists in an amount can be measured. So because of that, we need to be able to measure what you have learned, even though it is innate. Since there is no known plausible alternative to tests, the need to make the best use of tests to give a dependable measure of one's knowledge gave birth to the specialization of test psychometry, IK 1998. Test psychometry is an area of measurement and evaluation whose foundation is laid on the premise that true score of a learner in a test is the sum of the observed score and the sum of the error score, as illustrated below. T is equal to 0 plus E, where T is the true score, O is the observed score, and E is the error score. The true score is invisible. So you see from the topic, we are trying to measure the invisible from the visible. The true score is invisible. And this is the innate potentials we inherit from our parents, transferred through the genes, and the learning experiences we are exposed to, both of which determine whether we get a test item right or wrong. The true score obtained from a test is the sum product of your total potential or your innate potential and the learning experiences you have been exposed to. Thus, innate potential explains why you can teach 40 students in a class, giving the same learning materials, and test under the same condition. Some will score A, B, C, D, and even F. Why is that so? Because not just the learning experiences, but actually the innate potential of the candidate, of the student or learner, has a lot to do with it. The learning experiences may be the same, but the innate potential varies from one person to another. The closest potentials are from identical twins. No wonder identical twins are easily able to perceive what their twin is thinking. And a talent found in one will naturally occur in the other. Test psychometries have been able to determine that there are three components of innate potential that determines the learning capacity of an individual, namely verbal aptitude, quantitative aptitude, and emotional intelligence. Verbal aptitude, which is the ability of an individual to understand, interpret, and effectively use language for communication and illustration, derived from cognitive reasoning. So the ability to use your brain and communicate what you have in your mind. Quantitative aptitude, which is the person's ability to understand, analyze, and solve numerical questions quickly and accurately. Then emotional intelligence, the capacity of a person to be aware of and control and express emotion as it relates to interpersonal relationships and decision making. So these three components are what are in you, and that is what determines whether you are able to get an item in a test right or wrong. Learners are encouraged, therefore, is high and pursue a related field of study. Psychometries have also been established. Psychometries have also established that there are varying levels of innate potentials, meaning that the verbal aptitude, quantitative aptitude, emotional intelligence of individuals can be classified into a scale of high, moderate, low. So which means your verbal aptitude, even though you may be high, you may not, some other person may be moderate or low. But we all have these three components, but at varying degrees. Learners are encouraged, therefore, to identify where their innate potential is high and pursue a related field of study. Permit me to use an example, because it's not allowed to sing and dance in an inaugural lecture. But remember Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson was gifted in dancing. If he moves his hand like this, some people are fainting already. So if you are not gifted in that area, you'll be struggling like some people are struggling, and they move from one obito dance to another. So when you find your area of specialty, pursue it. The subject that you have to read and read before you understand is not your own. The one that you read a little and then you are able to understand, that's where you belong, because that is where your potential is. Because those who study so hard and yes, score so low are among those who say to us, examination is very true test of knowledge. That means you are in the wrong place. That is why you are not able to say that. Let me not answer the questions too early. We will come back to it. Thank you very much for your responses. Psychometrics has also established that there are varying levels of innate potentials, meaning, okay, I think we have been through that, so let's move on. The tendency to benefit from learning experiences is dependent on the learner's innate potential. Jerry Brunner, understanding learning theory, says, anybody can learn anything in an intellectually honest environment, meaning the learning experiences be planned to accommodate the level of the learner and the nature of the learner's innate potential. So there are some schools, they have high-ranking classes where they put those who are very intelligent and those who are moderate and those who are not so moderate. You may say, why? Are you discriminating against my child? No. Where your child is put is where your child is able to perform, and there's space in the sky for every bird. So don't say, oh, until my child is able to excellently do A, your sky can do B or do C, and yet still be an excellent child that will take care of himself and the society. Thank you very much. Let's restate again that schools are established for learning, but to determine if learning has been achieved and to what extent it has been achieved, there has to be tests and examinations, which will provide a score that is a true reflection of how much learning has taken place. Due to the decisions that are hinged on assessment scores, the value of any institution of learning is measured not only by the learning experiences provided, but by the quality of assessment that goes on in the institution. Remember, I gave an illustration that there is a true score which is equivalent to the observed score and the error score. So let's deal with the error score first before we get to the observed score. The error score. The error score is due to the error in measurement. There are two sources of errors in measurement, namely random error and systematic error. Therefore, the error score is due to the effect of the systematic and random error. Systematic errors are known as biases, instrumental, environmental, and human errors. They are consistent with predictable errors that occur in measurement due to instrumental errors, that is, faulty calibration or design of measuring instruments. So you want to use an instrument, you have to be sure that it is not faulty. Imagine you are going to stand on a scale to measure your weight, and you stand upon that scale, and it reads for you 78 kilograms, and you step out of it, and you step on that same scale again, it says 82 kilograms. And then you step out and step on again, and it says 65 kilograms. What have you done in this interval that is making this case? So which means that instrument is in error. So you cannot use such an instrument to measure. So that is why we avoid the instrumental errors. To deal with instrumental errors, measuring instruments should be trial tested to determine its usability for the purpose for which it sets out to measure. The environmental errors. These occurs due to changes in temperature, pressure, seating arrangement, quality of supervision, health or well-being of the testees. The test environment is very dependent on the performance of students, or student performance is very dependent on the test environment. I remember for some years I've been involved in approving centers or recommending centers to be approved for JAMB exams. There are some centers we have said no, these are not good enough because the students will not be able to put in their best. But sometimes some of those centers were approved. And I remember, imagine that my own daughter was going to write JAMB, and the center that I declared not good enough and was not approved through the back door was the one they now said she should write in. That became an issue for fasting and prayers. Remember they told you that I'm a minister, so I had to enter into fasting and prayers. On that day we got to the exam hall, the instruments in that school was not working. So after a while, they now redeployed us to another center where she was able to write and proved herself worthy. Thank you. So the examination condition is very important. If the examination conditions are in error, they introduces error. Then to deal with environmental error, the environment of the test administration should be conducive and with clear test instructions, proper ventilation and lighting, testees should be healthy enough to perform the required task or response, and supervisors should be knowledgeable on what constitutes proper test supervision. We have seen some situations where in an examination hall, some supervisors are talking. They have become a source of error to the performance of the students. So they should constitute, so these are things that can bring error. And by the time a student sees all this happen, and then the score he gets does not reflect the knowledge he thinks he has, that's why some people will now say, oh, examination is not a true test of knowledge. Human error. Human error occurs due to poor understanding of questions asked or wrong use of measuring instruments. To deal with human error, the question should be written in simple language that will enable the testees understand what is expected of him and in what manner and the extent of response required. Some lecturers or teachers are in the habit of setting questions that students cannot understand in the name of saying, I want to teach them a lesson. You are not to teach them any lesson. You are to test whether they have understood or not. And the way to avoid that is to make sure that after anybody says a question, there should be a group or a committee that does internal assessment of the questions to be sure that that question is a true representative of what is to be learned. Thank you very much. When random errors occur due to statistical errors of noise, which are unpredictable, life itself is not predictable, so there are so many things that may occur. Like today, I look forward to us taking the picture. I usually say picture anyone song because you don't see it after we have taken it. But the rain didn't allow us to do that, but we have to take an abridged one of it. But it's okay, so we are moving on already. So there are some sequences in life that will make some things not to be there. So but now, when that occurs, which we call random errors, it then means that people have to be tested, not just with one short test. You can be tested repeatedly. That's why we recommend that not one single test should determine the knowledge of an individual, but rather multiple tests, so that at the end, this error is evened out. Moving on. So to deal with random error components of the error score, the assessment of an individual's learning should be based not on one test, but rather on multiple tests, spaced over a period of time. And using multiple instruments such as written tests, oral tests, assignments, classwork, homework, projects, practicals, presentation, and even peer assessments. In other words, the more, the merrier. This approach minimizes substantially, if not zero out, the random error component of error score. Now, in conclusion on the error score, it is best that the error score is zero. Why is that so? If not, it can either increase the score unduly or reduce the score undesirably. So the issue of the error score must be properly addressed in the course of tests and examinations. Let's now move to the other component, which is the observed score. The observed score is the score awarded after a test or examination, usually assumed to be the true score. The extent to which an observed score reflects the true score is dependent on the quality of test items. Subject specialists as teachers labor to ensure adequate learning experiences. However, learning experiences alone cannot guarantee success in a test. The quality of the assessment is determined by the following: quality of test items, condition for test administration, scoring and interpretation of test scores. While the later three listings can be accounted for by the error score, the most outstanding contribution of the observed score is the quality of test items. The score awarded after scoring a test response is the observed score. This is highly dependent on the quality of test items. The quality of test items is determined by the test properties. of validity and reliability, as well as the test item properties of difficulty, discrimination, guessing, and carelessness. Test validity is the extent to which a test measures what it says has to measure, and it's expected that a test covers at least 70% of the content of study, and with appropriate level of difficulty depending on the level of learners. The higher the level of learners, the higher the level of expected difficulty. A situation whereby you have taught 12 items or 12 topics, and some topics are even bigger than others, and out of the 12, you end up bringing questions from only 4. You are among those who are telling people that examination is not a true test of knowledge. You should cover the content at least 70% before you can say, yes, this is the content of the test. This is the test. The test is able to satisfy what it says has to measure. Levels of difficulties are determined by Bloom's taxonomy of learning objectives, with the least being knowledge, exemplified by the testee's ability to recall facts. They followed by comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. Test psychometric uses what is referred to as test blueprints or table of certification to ensure that the test covers all relevant content and with appropriate levels of difficulty. This is an example of a test blueprint. And if you have been constructing tests, examinations, and you do not know how to draw this table, it means you have been contributing to those who say that examination is not a true test of knowledge. This is basic, so that your questions cover the contents as well as the appropriate level of difficulty. Maybe at this point, I will quickly comment briefly on our examination bodies. Our high-stake examination bodies, JAM, NECO, WAEC, as well as NAPTEP. They have been ensuring that the quality of test items are good. We have carried out studies and found out that they have good test items. Many of them fall under the category of what we call good test items and good quality. Then I may now ask, why are we not so sure of the results that come from WAEC, NECO, or NAPTEP? We will answer that question later. If their test items are good, and yet somebody comes and says, I have an A1 in mathematics, and yet you give him some simple mathematics to solve, he's unable to solve it. Why is that so? Because all this contribute to the idea when people say test is not a true test of knowledge. But if it's properly done, I think, okay, let's not be too quick to answer the question. There's still time to move on. Thank you. The reliability of the test is the extent to which a test consistently measures what it says has to measure. So you must make sure that if you give a test today and the person scores today, he should be able to score the same score at another time. If for any reason the score should not be, the difference should be minimal, so that you do WAEC mathematics. After a month, you do NECO mathematics. If you have A1 in WAEC mathematics, we do not expect you to get less than A2 in NECO mathematics. But by the time you have A1 in WAEC mathematics and C6 in NECO, it then shows that there's something wrong with the test administration. Let's go on. And such error score can affect the performance or the belief that maybe examination is not a true test of knowledge. But let's move on. So let's go on, because I've tried in this lecture for this audience not to be too technical, but I want us to be able to follow and be happy after it. I see a lot of people already buying the book. You will read more details in it, but let's continue. The value of this coefficient ranges from, we do what we call statistical analysis to determine whether a test is reliable enough or not. In the same vein, we also carry out some statistical analysis to determine what the level of difficulty is good enough or not. All these efforts are to make sure that our measure of the knowledge, the innate knowledge, is actually based on the visible. Now you are beginning to see what the visible is. What is the visible? The visible is the observed score. That is what we see, the test we give. Our aim in test psychometry is to ensure that the observed score equals the true score by constructing high quality tests and ensuring proper test administration and scoring, thereby achieving an error score of 0 or almost 0. And when this is attained, the examination can be regarded as a true measure of knowledge. Now, I know some of you came in here with the impression that examination is not a true test of knowledge. But I want to let you know that because we don't have any alternative, and the work that the test psychometrics have been doing to ensure that tests, the observed score equals the true score, you agree with me that examination can be considered a true test of knowledge. But this is on the condition that the process of constructing the test ensures that the test is valid and reliable and appropriately covers proper difficulty level and proper discrimination level, as well as taking care of guessing and carelessness. If a student is careless and he gets an item wrong, if we're able to determine that he got it wrong due to carelessness, we should mark it right for that student. And if a student, thank you, you like that part of it. I hope you will like this one as you like that. If a student guesses an item right, and we are able to determine that he got it right by guessing, we should mark it wrong for that student. And how do we do this? How do we measurement? How do we do this? You see, particularly in objective tests, when it is possible to guess right, we have been able to construct items that have proper distractors. What does that mean? Only those who know the correct answer will get it right. Those who don't know the correct answer will always get it wrong because it is so close to the correct answer. So that is one of the ways we do it. I don't know whether my childhood friend and schoolmate was able to make it here today. Barrister Dele Abino, is he here? Yeah, he would have been a witness to this one. Is he here? Aha! You are welcome, sir. You remember when we started to write JAM? And we will now, after the JAM exam, want to mark our own scripts. Then we bring the English, use of English. When we take that use of English, we look at question 1. We say, okay, this is the answer, we'll get it. There are some questions, we look at it, option A, B, C, and D. They all look correct, and we will declare it correct. No wonder when the score came for JAM, it showed that they constructed the exam, the test accurately. So we have done efforts to make sure that we have proper distractors, and any good objective test that is constructed should be such that only those who know the question should answer it right. And that is what we have been laboring on over the years. I want to quickly tell you my brief contribution to knowledge. My efforts in test psychometry started with my doctoral thesis, where I compared the two main theories of measurement in measurement and evaluation, the classical test theory and actual response theory. Reason being that the classical test theory is based on simple principles and fundamental computations. But the item response theory is based on very complicated statistical procedures. So much so that many of the statistical procedures you must submit to the use of computer to be able to get them. However, the struggle between the theories in CCT and IROT was so strong that at that point I decided to compare in item selection whether there's actually a difference between the CCT and IROT. My conclusion was that the study revealed that the limitation of sample invariance in CCT, which I will explain later, can be remedied by adopting random sampling procedures and ensuring a sample size of over 1,000 in ensuring that the selection of items is based on the traits of interest. Contribution. I provided empirical evidence on the comparability of two measurement theories for test item selection, showing that statistical superiority does not naturally translate to applicability. So both theories can do just well, but one must have a condition of high level of responses. That is, at least 1,000 persons or responses must be used for the item analysis, and it should be people who have the trait and representative of that trait. This study formed the foundation since 2009 after my PhD on the various work that I've been doing with my students as well as my research teams on trying to make sure that every effort that we make sure that the observed score is accurately reflects the true score is what should be attained, so that a child who has studied hard and have the right capability to learn and have learned, when he returns back, should not be afraid of whether he will pass the test or not. You should be able to determine your score in a test, whether it's going to be A or B, if the test items are true reflection of the traits of interest. Now, permit me, sir, my Vice Chancellor, sir, to talk about, and by definition, some areas that we have worked on over the years. And the names of those with which I have worked on it is recorded in the paper, because I've already been told that I have 10 minutes more, and I'm sure that from that 10 minutes I have used 2. So let me quickly go, because there's somebody I must acknowledge. If I don't get there, that means this inaugural lecture will not be a peaceful one for me, even though you may go home and the question is answered. Sample invariance. What does that mean? It means that irrespective of the sample that is used, the item selected for a test, which determines the test quality, should be the same. The unidimensionality. It means that if I want to construct a test in mathematics, it should be measuring mathematics, not a related subject like physics or chemistry. That's what and that is the efforts that we have made. Then test equating. We want to be sure. And we have carried out so much studies on that. Equating results or tests from WAEC, NECO, and NAPTEP. And I want to let you know that we have not found any significant difference between the test of WAEC, NECO, or NAPTEP. So because of that, these are equivalent exams, and their certificates are equal and should be treated like that. The local item independence. Some teachers are in the habit of setting questions that have A, B, C, and D, particularly in mathematics. And if you do not get A right, you will get B wrong, you will get C wrong, because they will make A, B to be dependent on A, C to be dependent on B. Look, it's either that teacher is wicked or is ignorant of measurement principle. It should not be so. Local independence of item means one item measures a trait, and don't add another item to it. I know those in engineering, they will be smiling now because that's what they do sometimes. Those in mathematics, you see why people run away from such subjects. They make sure if you don't know A, you can't know B. I know it shouldn't be so. So let them hear. I know that some of them are here and they will tell those who are not here. No, Then differential item functioning is an area we have also worked on. What does that mean? The performance of a student should be based on the ability of that student. And when students of a particular ability, because of their sex, age, or school type, or socio-economic status or ethnicity, are unable to get the same item right, then we talk about differential item functioning. Maybe I'll quickly say this, I hope I have the time. There was an American psychologist who carried out a study on human intelligence. And then he concluded that the white race is superior to the black race in terms of human intelligence. Then a black psychologist now constructed another instrument, now using what is peculiar in the culture of the black society, and found out that the black did much better than the white from those instruments. So what are we saying? Any item that seems to be biased in terms of sex, age, school type, socio-economic status or ethnicity is a bad item. And we try to do that. And once you are able to take that, then we test for such differential item functioning and to make sure that you only get what you deserve. Item parameter drift. Over time, we have item banks. Over time, we find out that the items become obsolete or stale. And that's what we have seen in JAM. Some years they say students perform so well. So when they say they have not performed well, the problem is not with the students. The reason is either the items in the item bank have become stale or betrays the prevailing cultural practices at that time. And because it's a selection exam, they are supposed to standardize the score. So that the issue of saying this year students perform well, the other year they didn't perform well, does not arise. Okay, since they say that I must finish now, then get the book and then find out all the others. You know, okay, let me quickly do my recommendations. But I think we have agreed on something now, before I go to my recommendations, that tests, when well constructed and administered and scored, following the specified conditions that I have so listed, can be considered a true test of knowledge. Learning materials, okay. Recommendations. Learning materials, both human and material, should be provided in schools, and any school that does not have that capacity should not be allowed to function. This is because students' attitude toward examination malpractice is strongly dependent on the extent to which learning has taken place. In the situation whereby there are some schools, there are no teachers in some major subjects, and then they must pass. What do? That is where examination malpractice become the order of the day. All institutions of learning and its subunits should have a functional examinations committee saddled with the responsibility of ensuring that test item satisfies test attributes of validity and reliability, and also test item attributes of difficulty, discrimination, guessing, and carelessness. There should also be an examination monitoring committee to ensure adequate test administration conditions are observed with zero tolerance to examination malpractice. I think that's going on here in the University of Benin with Professor Aisen as chairman. Sometimes the Deans are not happy with him because he's also too ruthless. Professor Aisen, I hope he's here. Oh, thank you. He's the director of our exams and records. Heads of academic units should ensure proper scoring of examination sheets. Scored examination sheets should accompany results submitted by assessors, because there are some assessors who do not score. They just award marks based on whatever. So they must submit their scores with it. Proven cases of examination and practice in high-stake examination conducted by bodies such as JAM, WAEC, NECO, and NAPTEP should attract J-terms for all perpetrators. We recommended J-term ranging from 6 months to 2 years. Where school proprietors or their agents or parents are proven to be in connivance, a minimum of 1 year jail sentence is recommended. Conclusion. The beauty of structured learning is seen in the rapid development of the world in all spheres of human endeavor, as learning has taken the center stage in service delivery and production of goods aimed at benefiting the learner, his immediate and larger society. The opportunities and benefits of learning has been learning assessment as an indispensable tool in educational system. The overriding interest of test psychometry is to make observed score, which is visible, to be equal to the true score, which is invisible, by providing empirical knowledge on how to design quality test items and satisfy test and item properties, which while providing for strategies to achieve a zero error score. Applying these findings in test construction, test administration, response and scoring interpretation of test scores, examination can indeed be a true test of knowledge. Preparation of examinations, the conduct and the assessment of responses should be treated with the kind of seriousness attached to the survivor of a society. Applying, when learning is assessed unfairly, productivity declines. Individuals become less able to compete globally. The more accurate an assessment reflects what a person has truly learned, the better that person can apply the knowledge for personal growth and contribute meaningfully to the progress of the society. When assessment truly reflects learning, certified individual will perform optimally, thereby enhancing economic progress and promoting accountability among public holders. Permit me, even though not recorded here, to say we need to learn that from China. They started schooling, they started testing. My Vice Chancellor, sir, I want to write to first of all, I want to acknowledge the love of God the Father, the grace of God the Son, Jesus Christ, and the fellowship of God the Holy Spirit upon my life over these years. He alone is worthy of my thanksgiving. Great things he has done, greater things he will do. I want to thank you very much. I want to especially appreciate the Vice Chancellor of this great university, Professor Bright Omorogiuwa, for providing the enabling environment and granting me the opportunity to present this inaugural lecture. I want to appreciate and the principal officers of the great institutions. I know my time. Give me 1 minute more so that I have peace when I return home. I also appreciate, okay, they are recorded in the book, so I will go to the very last one, which they must allow me to say. If I don't say this one, it's not complete. My father's great passion for education earned him the nickname among my siblings, some of which are here, which is, when he says, we call him Watiebe, Ebe Matiebe. And for that, he has been able to achieve and make all of us to be committed academics and excelling in our various fields of endeavor. So you read all the other terms, but let me go to the one that will make me have peace at home. Because that one, okay, so they have granted me the 1 minute, or I've taken that 1 minute by force. She said thanks to my wife, my chair leader, editor, the love of my life, my brain and beauty, Dr. Mrs. Tracy B. Omorogiuwa, Associate Professor of Social Work. She says I'm never serious with anything, but I now told her, how come I'm able to succeed in everything? I'm entirely grateful for the love and prayers and encouragement and enabling environment you have created over our 2 decades of marriage. I also want to appreciate my lovely children, and they all have their titles. The first one is always Arema, we call her champion, because they have always sang for the champion for her whenever they are doing graduation in their schools. Then the one that is ICT, the one that makes sure that if you have any problem with the phone, she's the one that solves it. And she thinks so much like me that she's the one that can also discomfit me when I try to bring up an argument. I want to appreciate her. That is Elowosa Joanna. Then my third daughter, Esosa, to her, she is the beloved of the Father. The only beloved of the Father. We have to let her not come here because she won't let me stay here without her being here. Then God has recently blessed us with twin babies.
Congratulations, sir.
Osa and Udosa. They came recently, and all these children have brought joy and cheerful and made the home a cheerful place for me to return to after work. And I want to say, I appreciate this mammoth crowd. All the eyes are filled, and some persons are not able to find seats. And if you permit me to say this, the last time I saw such a crowd like this is when Ezisa presented and said to us, the criminal in all of us. I'm taking after you, sir. Thank you very much. God bless you and God bless you.
Thank you very much. Congratulations. I now respectfully invite the Acting Vice Chancellor, Professor Chief Victor Ogie-Bineweka, for a recap of the lecture.
This lecture was well delivered. Congratulations, our great Professor Omorogiuwa. The synopsis of the lecture. The lecturer goes to history. The lecture goes to history to present the record of first established school being in ancient Mesopotamia 3500 BC, where scribes were trained in writing and administration. That ancient Greece philosophers like Plato founded the academy around 387 BC with emphasis on philosophical and scientific education, showing that there exists a challenge to determine whether learning has taken place. The use of tests as a means of learning assessment can be traced to ancient China in 2200 BC, when civil service examination system was instituted by the Chinese emperor to determine if government officials were fit to perform their duties. During the 19th century, the British, French, and German governments patterned their civil service examinations after the early Chinese system. Henry Fiske, an American-German professor of languages, is however widely credited with formalizing written examinations as a means of evaluating students in a structured way during the 19th century. Tests can either be administered orally or in writing. Oral tests has been faulted as cumbersome and could be highly subjective, as the testees are asked different questions, giving room for high error in scores awarded to testees. Test psychometrics is an area of measurement and evaluation whose foundation is laid on the premise that the true score of a learner in a test is the sum of the observed score and the error score. The true score is invisible. This is the innate potentials we inherit from our parents, transferred through genes, and learning experiences we are exposed to, both of which determine whether we get a test item in a test right or wrong. The error score is the score due to error in measurement. These are the two sources of errors in measurement, namely random error and systematic error. The observed score is the score you are awarded after a test or examination usually assumed to be the true score. The extent to which an observed score reflects the true score is however dependent on quality of the test items. The quality of test items is determined by the test properties of validity and reliability, as well as test items properties of difficulty, discrimination, guessing, and carelessness. The contribution of the lecturer started with providing empirical evidence on the comparability of the two measurement theories, CTT and IROT, for test item selection, showing that statistical superiority does not naturally translate to applicability. Further, conducting research on improving quality of test items by designing or refining methods of item selection analysis with more than 26 collaborators, focusing on sample invariance, on unidimensionality, test equating, local item independence, differential item functioning, item parameter drift, model fit, language manipulation, optimal response options, option distractibility, and aberrant examiner's responses. The lecturer concludes that the overriding interest of test psychometrics is to make the observed score visible to be equal to the true score if visible by providing empirical knowledge on how to design quality test items that satisfy test and items properties, while providing for strategies to achieve a zero error score in test administration and scoring. Applying these findings in test construction, test administration, response scoring, and interpretation of test scores, examination can indeed be a true test of knowledge, while suggesting sanctions against perpetrators of examination malpractice. Let's put our hands together again. Inaugural lecture. Congratulations once again.
Thank you very much, Professor Victor Igbenewaka. Please may I now invite the inaugural lecturer for today and members of the immediate family. Please come on stage as the Vice Chancellor will decorate our lecturer for today. Members of immediate family, please come on stage. This way on my right. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please let us welcome the wife of our inaugural lecturer today, Dr. Mrs. Tracy Omorogiuwa. Please, it is okay to celebrate her. Put your hands together. Congratulations, ma'am. We welcome Ogosa Rema Omorogiuwa and Elogosa Joanna Omorogiuwa. Congratulations. We welcome other family members to this place, Mrs. Dorothy Edokbayi. We welcome Ms. Sonia Uwagwe, Dr. Saimida Omorogiuwa, and Mrs. Blessing Omorogiuwa. We welcome Engineer Sam Omorogiuwa. We welcome the Minority Leader at Edo State House of Assembly, Honorable Barrister Charity Agwobawe here. Please let's put our hands together to celebrate him. We welcome Professor Emeritus T.O.K. Audu and Professor Mrs. Vivian Audu. Please let us celebrate these personalities. Thank you. We appreciate you. We welcome you, Emeritus Professor Nosa Igafuna. We welcome Emeritus Professor Patrick Igbenofia. We welcome also Professor Emeritus Raymond Eliho. Please, can we put our hands together to celebrate these our fathers? Thank you. We appreciate you. We welcome Emeritus Professor Momosa Owie. Thank you, sir. We welcome Director Part-Time Program Professor Kingsley. We welcome a one-time registrar of our university, Mrs. Ota Sophia Oshodi. We welcome you, ma'am. We welcome a former Deputy Vice Chancellor Administration, Professor Mrs. Catherine Ukmoma. You're welcome, ma'am. We welcome another former Deputy Vice Chancellor of the Kema campus, Professor Eri Aduwa Ogiegbain. You're welcome, sir. We welcome Reverend Father Dr. Andrew Adabule. We welcome Archbishop Dr. Utibe Ataha. Please put your hands together to celebrate these persons. Faculty of Education, please let us celebrate our own. Thank you, that's a lot better. We welcome Professor Francis Omoyi, Professor Regina Dana, we welcome you. Professor Mono Wandiani, we welcome you. You know these persons I am calling, so it's okay to celebrate them. We welcome Professor Julian Umbeben. We welcome Umbebu. We welcome Professor Mrs. Elizabeth Egbo Chuku. Please celebrate her. We welcome Professor Sunday Yamo, former Dean. We welcome Professor Medina Kadiri. Please put your hands together to celebrate them. We welcome Professor Wilfred Igrodala. Please celebrate him. We welcome Professor Mrs. Roslyn Osagi. We welcome you, Professor Mrs. Ebiri. We welcome Professor Manasseh and Mrs. Teresa Imoni Kebe. We welcome Sir Amma. We appreciate your presence here today, Professor Mabel Oyitso. You're welcome, ma. We welcome you, Professor Mrs. Ujiro Igudu. You're welcome. Please, can you celebrate her for me? Thank you. Professor Mrs. Antonia Clark, we welcome you, ma. We also welcome Professor Tony Afemihe. We welcome Professor Idehe. We also welcome Professor Iyabode Owamboise. We welcome our own Professor Stephen Uwamusi. Professor Mrs. Patience Owume, we welcome you. We welcome you, Professor Kokure Egafona. Please celebrate her. We also welcome Professor Christian Ugoji. We welcome Professor Sylvester Agawa. Thank you for coming, Professor Mrs. Effie Egbobo. We also welcome Professor Mrs. Sohe Omoegbe. We welcome especially the General Manager, Speed FM, Patricia Oumese. Thank you very much for coming. We appreciate your presence. I appreciate everyone from the Adolo Edo Boys College, Old Boys Association. We welcome you to the University of Benin. We welcome all old girls of Idia College, Old Girls Association. We welcome you. Thank you for coming. We welcome you, Dr. Gideon Edon Dagbo, Director, Edu Abroad Travel Services. Thank you very much, sir, for coming. We welcome Professor Obose Angela Oraziwole. Thank you very much for coming. And for everyone that has come to grace this occasion today, you defy the rain and the auditorium is full. We appreciate you. I'd like you to put your hands together to celebrate yourselves. Thank you for your commitment to the Dean. And this is how I would like to conclude the 355th inaugural lecture in the inaugural lecture series of the University of Benin. In a short while, we will take the national pledge, and then we'll take the Uniben anthem first, then the national pledge. Please, would like for you to stay wherever you are so that the Vice Chancellor will lead the procession out of the auditorium. Please stand to your feet. Please rise as we take the Uniben anthem and then our national pledge. pledge to Nigeria, my country, to be faithful, loyal, and honest, to serve Nigeria with all my strength, to defend her unity, and uphold her honor and glory. So help me God. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Please remain where you are, as the Vice Chancellor will lead the procession out of the auditorium at this time.